Welcome back to the channel. If you love stories where genius, power, and danger collide, make sure you hit subscribe so you will not miss any of our files. Today, we are opening a case that will make many people uncomfortable, because most of what you think you know about Einstein is actually wrong. He is praised as the greatest genius in human history. But what if I told you that the image of a lone genius who single-handedly shattered classical physics is nothing more than a modern myth? And what if I told you that the equation E equals mc squared, a line of symbols as poetic as a verse, became the foundation for a weapon capable of wiping out an entire city? And that Einstein was not completely innocent? So who was Einstein? Was he a pure genius, a single link in a larger community, or the man who unintentionally led humanity to the edge of destruction? This video will not be anything like what you learned from school textbooks, and it may change the way you look at Einstein forever. Albert Einstein was born in 1879 in Germany, in a world that worshipped discipline. But from the very beginning, he was nothing like everyone else. He spoke late. He barely socialized. He often stared into empty space as if he were talking to the universe itself instead of playing. He would sit for hours staring at a compass needle. Why does it always point in one direction? That was the first time Einstein touched one of nature's hidden secrets. But school saw him as a bad student. Stubborn, disobedient, unfit. A teacher once said straight to his face, "You will never amount to anything." But inside Einstein's mind, imaginary experiments were exploding. At 16 years old, he imagined himself riding on a beam of light. What would happen to time? How would space distort around him? School frustrated him to the core, but that frustration became the fuel that would ignite the theory of relativity. In 1905, Einstein was working at the Bern patent office. It was a boring job, but it was also the place where he secretly wrote for papers that changed physics forever: the photoelectric effect, Brownian motion, special relativity, and E equals mc squared for papers. One single year. A scientific revolution. People called it his miracle year. But here is the controversial part. Einstein did not create these breakthroughs out of thin air, the photoelectric effect. It stood on the work of Planck. Brownian motion. Many had questioned and analyzed it earlier. Special relativity, built on ideas from Lorentz and Fitzgerald. E equals mc squared. Poincare had already come very close. Einstein was truly a genius, but he was also a master synthesizer, the one who assembled all the pieces that the 19th century had already placed on the table. The story that Einstein did everything alone exists simply because history likes to attach everything to one memorable face. Here is a truth that few people ever mention. Einstein was formally trained at ETH Zurich, one of the top schools in Europe. He earned a doctorate. He was not isolated. He did not teach himself in some dark room. Einstein had his own academic circle called the Olympia Academy. They read Mark, Planck, Lorentz, and Poincare. They debated late into the night, sharing every idea they had, and the general theory of relativity, his greatest achievement, that was not the product of one man working alone either. Minkowski, whom Einstein once dismissed, was actually the person who created the concept of spacetime. Grossmann, his former classmate, provided all of the Riemannian mathematics needed for the theory. Ricci, Levi Civita, and Christoffel built the mathematical tools that the theory relies on. David Hilbert almost wrote down the field equations a few days before Einstein did. Einstein was a genius, but he was a genius standing inside a powerful community. A whole ecosystem of knowledge helped him rise. The myth of Einstein the lone genius only oversimplifies science. The truth is far more beautiful. Science has never been a one-man game. If the story ended here, Einstein would forever remain a pure symbol. But history has a way of making everything more complicated. When Hitler came to power, the scientific community trembled. If Nazi Germany obtained an atomic bomb, humanity would be finished. And when the equation E equals mc squared proved that mass could transform into enormous energy, the nightmare became real. A small amount of plutonium atoms could release the energy of thousands of tons of explosives. Einstein, a scientist who loved peace, was pulled into a vortex of politics and war. Here is the part that makes many people argue. Without Einstein, there would be no theoretical foundation for the bomb. Without Einstein's letter, there would be no Manhattan Project at the moment it began. So was he innocent, or merely unintentional? In matters of morality, what really separates an accident from irresponsibility? In 1939, Einstein signed a letter to President Roosevelt. One single signature, but it was enough to make history split into a new direction. That letter triggered the beginning of the Manhattan Project. Einstein was not invited to Los Alamos. He did not design the bomb. He did not join the military, but the world still hung his name on the spear of responsibility, because he was the familiar symbol. On July 16, 1945, the Trinity test lit up the New Mexico sky. Einstein heard the news and said, "It is horrifying." He spent the rest of his life fighting against the arms race. He opposed the hydrogen bomb. He called for worldwide nuclear disarmament. And he admitted one painful sentence: "If I had known the Germans would not succeed in making a bomb, I would not have signed that letter." So who exactly was Einstein? A genius who redefined the universe? Yes. Someone who helped open the nuclear age? Also yes. A victim torn apart by the era he lived in? That is not wrong either. We idolize Einstein because it makes the story easier to tell. But science has never been the creation of a single person, and war has never been the fault of one equation. The mistake was not E equals mc squared. The mistake was not Einstein. The mistake is that humanity always finds a way to turn knowledge into weapons. That is the most frightening truth in this entire story. Not Einstein, but us. If this video shattered part of the Einstein myth inside you, leave a comment below. Tell me, was Einstein innocent? Was he at fault? Or was he simply a genius used by history itself? Make sure you like, share, and subscribe so you can continue exploring more controversial files with us. In the next episode, who do you want me to uncover? Oppenheimer, the man who turned theory into a weapon. Von Neumann, the most frightening mind of the 20th century. Or Nikola Tesla, the misunderstood genius of modern mythology. I will see you in the next case.